Alright, so there's been something that's been going on in the Roblox space right now that deserves way more attention than it's getting. A lot of players might not even notice it at first glance, but it could seriously affect the future of games on the platform, especially smaller creative ones. One of the Roblox's most peaceful title, Grow Garden, was just acquired by a group called Do Big Studios. And while that might sound like a solid upgrade, maybe more updates, better servers, improved gameplay, there's a lot under the surface that players should be paying attention to. Here's the thing. Two Big Studios isn't known for creating games. In fact, they haven't really built anything from scratch. What they do have is funding, serious funding. And what they've been doing with that money is to buy out already successful games, not help them, not collaborate, just acquire them outright. On paper, that might look like growth, but when you really look at the games being targeted and what happens to them after these deals, the trend becomes a little concerning. Let's start with Grow Garden itself. This game stood out on Roblox for being chill, low pressure, and refreshingly free from the usual monetization traps. No pay to win, no constant pop ups, no premium only items. It built a loyal audience by being simple and authentic. But now, with a studio like Do Big taking control, a studio whose playbook is all about monetization for strategies, the game's identity is at serious risk. And we've seen this before. Remember Blade Ball? The game was everywhere. It was one of the biggest games on the platform for weeks, with a super simple and addictive concept, but then the monetization hit hard. Battle passes, paid abilities, paywalled content, and mechanics that made the game feel less like a test of skill and more like a spending competition. It didn't take long for players to get frustrated, and while the game has still has a following, it's nowhere near the culture moment it had at launch. And a big reason for that is players felt the game became more than a business model than the gameplay. And then there's Fish, a game that also rose to the top because it felt different. It was fast paced, creative, and had the viral hook that pulled players in. But just like Blade Ball, it felt the same trap. Update after update, introducing more monetization, more paywalled features, and less of the original experience that made people love it. Players moved on. The hype didn't last, and it's not because of the gameplay stopped working, it's because of the monetization that got in the way of fun. Now here we are again, a cozy game like Grow Garden has been bought out by a studio that again hasn't built anything of its own, but is backed up by funding and likely looking for quick returns. That usually means one thing: a shift toward aggressive monetization. Expect game passes, boosts, cosmetics, bundles, premium currency, maybe even reworks of the progression system that slowed everything down unless you pay up. And yeah, it's still early, the changes to Grow Garden haven't fully hit yet, but players are already noticing small things: UI tweaks, new in game items hinting at a more premium structure, and a different tone in the way updates are announced. These are the quiet signals that usually come before the big shifts, and anyone who's watched how this plays out in the Roblox games knows what's likely coming next. What's especially frustrating is that this model doesn't reward creativity, it rewards capital. Indie developers putting in the time and passion to make something unique, and as soon as it gains traction, it gets bought by a studio that's more interested in monetizing than innovating. And if this trend continues, if more successful indie titles keep getting absorbed by studios like Dubig, we could end up with a front page that's full of clones, same monetization systems, same progression loops, same artificial engagement tactics. Roblox was built on user generated content, on small developers taking risks and building communities around passionate projects. But when money becomes the primary driver, the creativity takes a backseat. And that's exactly what we risk losing if this acquisition model keeps growing unchecked.